some of the best stuff that happens in a person's career is within the context of teamwork. There's some people who, they're just wired for teams. They've got this relational sensibility, high emotional IQ. They part of the way they're wired is it sets them up to be really good at engaging with other people toward accomplishing a common goal. But not everybody's wired that way. Some are wired, and some of it is not hardwired by God so much as their experience and what they want. But their wiring has become really a solo thing. They want to do their thing. And so you need to either lead, follow, or get out of the way because they've got stuff to do and they're going to do it. If you're in their way, they're going to push you aside. If you're following them, then you better try to keep up because they don't really care whether you keep up or not. They're going to get where they're going to go. You've known both kinds of people. In the church, I don't want to make the scriptures and the gospel and the whole story of the church into a business model because it's not. But I will say that for the church, apparently God's design has been from its inception that it would be this team thing. My personal theory, and I've shared this before, is that it's not just a team thing. It's a family thing, so that God's church is his family. And when a family has harmony and unity and, another word, kind of hip word is synchronicity. When we have this kind of connection and we work together, incredible things become possible. Look at the first century. They turned the world upside down, but no one single person did that. They did it as a family, as a group. And John, he writes about that in his third letter that we're studying. This comes from verse 8. You have to go, let's go back. In verse 5, he talks about this is addressed to Gaius, and he talks about how Gaius's hospitality and his generosity had so positively impacted people from John's fellowship, the church family he was serving, that they came back and they told the story. Even though Gaius didn't know them, he treated them as family. These are my words, not John's. In verse 6, they have told the church about your love. Please send them on their way in a manner that honors God. It was for the sake of the name that they went out, receiving no help from the pagans. We ought therefore to show hospitality to such people, so that we may work together for the truth. Now, I want to talk about working together for the truth. And I think it's not accidental that John connects hospitality and working together for the truth. If I get this right, and it's pretty simple, so if I've messed it up, somebody needs to tell me. But I think John connected those two things. Therefore, because these people are on a mission from God, they're not Blues Brothers, but they really are on a mission from God. And he said, we ought therefore to show hospitality to such people so that, here's the purpose of hospitality, so that we may work together for the truth. We live in a world where hospitality is a dying art. Those who practice hospitality, those who are wired for hospitality, stand out. I've told you that my youngest daughter and her husband both, they practice hospitality. They are wired for it and gifted for it. I have another friend. His name's Don. We were at his house this weekend. He built a beautiful fire in the pit, and we were hanging out around the fire, and a vehicle comes down the street, and Don waves at him. I mean, that's natural for Don. For me, I might notice the truck, but that I don't know those people. And oh, by the way, they're in a brand new house. I don't think he knows his neighbors yet. Well, knowing Don, he's probably already introduced himself. See, whatever spiritual gift you want to call it, however you want to label it, he practices hospitality. He has people in and out of his house, his home, not just his house, his home all the time. And it isn't like it's not like he's doing this to earn points or get credit, or it just leaks out of him. Don and his wife Shelley are generous, holy smokes, to a fault, and hospitable. Part of their generosity is expressed in their hospitality. I really think I recently read a little blog. I don't know. I'm not a guy that reads tons of blogs, but I read how do I say it? It made a ton of sense. And one of the things that Bob Russell in his blog wrote was that people don't invite people into their home anymore. People don't share their home and hospitality and fellowship in homes. When I was growing up, little churches in little towns where my dad preached, factor that in. But we didn't need a small group ministry because people, there very few, in my memory, very few Sundays that either we didn't have another 2 or 3 families in our house potlucking it, or we weren't over at somebody else's house potlucking it, or evenings where the adults got together and the kids did whatever we could find to do and not get in trouble for. It just, that was part of culture. Almost nobody had a fenced-in yard. And the reason for that was you didn't need a fence. We knew each other. We would go back and forth and cross each other's lawns. It wasn't a big deal. And I'm not saying having a fence is wrong. I'm not saying if you don't have somebody over to your house every week, you're not in God's will. I'm not saying that. I am saying we could lose a significant tool for working together for the truth if we lose the skill and practice of hospitality. I've already told you this. This does not come naturally to me. We do not normally just find people and bring them over to our house. I'm preaching to myself. My wife and I have got to re-engage for us, what is the practice of hospitality, so that we can work together for the truth. See, it's not just about, so you can share life together. Well, that's a great outcome. But from John's perspective, if I'm getting it right, it's not about sharing life together. It's about working together for the truth. We need each other. We need to be in each other's lives. We need to be, yes, we do need to be sharing life together, but not just so we can be happy and connected and And so we can be in this in the most hip of the movements within the church of small groups. I've If it sounds like I'm talking down small groups, I'm not. I love that the church has begun in many cases, and not all, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, to embrace the idea that we have to help people. We have to help people get into one another's homes because it's no longer natural. It's no longer just a part of our culture. I am grateful for that. My thing is, it's not just about let's get together, share some food, watch a video, maybe pray together. That's it. No. Go back and let's go back and read this. John says, "We ought therefore to show hospitality to such people so that we may work together for the truth." How do you work together for the truth? Well, there's not just one way. Paul, 1 Corinthians 12, he talks about how there are lots of gifts, many gifts that God gave believers in his family. But the purpose for all of these gifts is for the enrichment, for the building up of his family, the body. It's for the health, the nurturance, and the mission of his church. So when we work together for the truth, it could be for benevolence, it could be for justice. And I've already been on a rant about social justice, so I'm not going to go there again. Justice, it's right. It's right for God's people to be concerned for justice. There's a problem that is so ugly, I think many Christians don't see it and don't want to see it, and that is that America it's about sex trafficking. Thousands and thousands of young women are trafficked as slaves in a sex industry that is it's illegal, number one, and it's underground. It is unseen, and is it ever messy? And we're not the only ones in the world. Check on Tim Tebow and his foundation and his work to free young women and young men who are held hostage in this sex slave industry. We ought to be speaking out about that, and we ought to put our money where our mouth is. There are issues of health, and there's issues of poverty. And these are even in our country. There's education and literacy, and yes, and yes, and yes. But what is the ultimate mission of the church? The ultimate mission of the church is Jesus said this is why he came. He said, the Son of Man has come to seek and to save the lost. That's our ultimate mission. Now, is it just like, okay, we're going to punch people's tickets and then we're done? No. In the context of Jesus' life, it was not just about getting people saved. It was about finding lost people and bringing them to God and then empowering them and walking with them as they grew up in him. And that is our primary mission. That is how we work together for the truth in its ultimate sense. Well, so the question comes, am I kind of just sitting around in the truth? Or am I working together with others for the truth? And I'm not loading a bunch of guilt on anybody. Not interested in doing that because it doesn't work. It's a very short-term thing. But I am going to just ask the question. How are you doing with that? Is there anything that you'd like to bump up in terms of your partnership with Christ as you work for the truth? I'll see you next time on So Care with Stevie Boy.